All right. So we are 3 full
4.
pot 4.
Is this 4?
Well, I'm not necessarily counting the 9mm ones because that's just us having some fun.
Right.
We're somewhere around there. We're a handful deep into these things, and getting some good feedback, which it makes me feel fulfilled as far as somebody who just enjoys talking about this stuff.
Yeah.
Right. But we've already received some questions, like as far as topics to cover, and different areas to go and to navigate. Because I think, well, I mean, you and I both know how muddy the water is with every little piece of things. You know, you look at some area and you Google it, like Google's like the worst thing that you could do as far as trying to navigate what is accurate and what is just fabricated.
Sure. And again, not trying to put Google down here, but they're going to put the things up there that they do want you to see first and foremost.
Right.
And yeah, like we talked about, I think in one of our very first podcasts, especially in this time, mentioning during COVID, if you get online, that's where everyone is at right now. So there's just an overwhelming amount of experts out there.
And make no mistake about it, I would not consider myself an expert. Yeah. If I have anything, it's experience. That's about
failure.
It.
That's what I have experienced.
No, I have a ton of failure. Yeah, absolutely. So, it's no doubt, that people are searching for information, and they want to know how that information is going to apply to them right now. And the bummer part is when you go online, you are at the helm of your own decision making. Like you're reading and gathering this info, and you're like, this makes sense as to why XYZ. It might not make any scientific sense at all. It could be completely fabricated and something off the wall, but if it makes sense, you're going to try it, and then you're not going to know if it's right or not until you fail. Yeah. Right?
Do you think in this time, do you think you spent more time on the internet or less during COVID?
During COVID?
Or just screen time in general?
More.
Yeah.
Because I don't know about you, but we pivoted our business to more of a virtual setting. So
we did.
So yes, definitely more.
Yeah.
Would I have liked it to be less? Sure. But I think with that there was an excellent opportunity for us I say as a family, to put some immovable timelines that says you're off your computer, you're off your phone.
Definitely.
So there were some good things that came out of it. Cool. You just had to search, right? So anyways, all right. Well, welcome back, guys, to the Silver Bullet podcast. Kind of went a little bit without doing an intro there, I guess. I don't know. Do you have to do intros every time?
Once you've done 3, I think you just...
Once you do 3, you're basically experts.
That's the rule.
All right. Today on this episode, and just to recap, the 45, the 9mm, and the 38 special type thing. Like, we decided to use these as kind of puns, but to kind of direct the conversation that James and I are going to have. So, like, the 45 cal episodes are going to be more information-based, okay? Something with very high or large impact that you could use as tools in your toolbox, okay? The 9mm is meant for mindset, right? It's very short. It's meant to challenge you. It's meant to promote some self-reflection and also give you an opportunity, let me shut my computer off, to grow, from a mental aspect. The 38 special, we're going to get into eventually. But we're going to build up a little bit of information before we start just telling you what we did with all of our clients, because that would be confusing.
Yeah.
There's a lot of follow-up questions like, well, why did you do this? Well, let's get a couple topics deep before we really start to do that. But I have 3 people already lined up for August to really come on and talk with us. So
yeah, those will be fun.
Yeah. So our 45 episode today is geared around not necessarily a myth, because honestly, myths are things that are paid attention to. People hold stock in a myth in some cases. I don't believe enough people hold stock in this.
Well, yeah. Well, it's just they don't prioritize it.
It's probably the best way to put it.
Yeah.
Everybody would like to have more of it.
Yeah. They know it's important.
But what do they know?
Sure. Well, then
what I mean? Not to condescend. Sound condescending, but like, what specifically do you know about sleep,
Right.
and why it is the most beneficial thing for you.
And again, I guess, I don't know, bad press for it. Like, there are very successful people, when you ask them, like, how much sleep do you get at night? Well, I don't need sleep. 5 hours.
Yeah.
And like, so then we think like, oh, that's what I need to do.
Yeah.
You know, I need to be up 19 hours of the day.
Sure.
Just working.
Sure. So basically today we're talking about recovery. Okay. And, I decided I was going to go all out and get on a bunch of different research articles. And I have, if you looked at my computer versus James, one of us is well prepared and the other one is just going to sit and nod his head.
Right. This guy.
No, it's really just because I actually had a lot of these things already saved at my disposal because I work with clients a lot on sleep, you know, and here's why, you know. When you think recovery, what do you think of? And this is for all of you out there thinking, when somebody says, are you recovering? What is the first thing you think of?
I think when I used to think of that question, it would relate to muscle soreness.
Sure.
For me.
Absolutely. That is the most common thing you think of. So if you were to go online and you were to type in, what is recovery from exercise? The very first thing you're going to find is muscle tissue repair, for sure, right? That is a part of recovery. Absolutely.
Domes.
You might find some that are talking about like maybe restoration of fluids, okay? You might hear something, recovery, talking about reducing soreness or delayed onset muscle soreness. You might see those things, maybe. That's about all you're really going to find. When you come to a facility or you work with a physical, I don't want to put words in anybody's mouth, but maybe a physical therapist or a physiotherapist, and they talk about recovery, there's a good chance they're going much deeper than just muscle tissue. I know, for example, the way that we look at things is much more in a holistic fashion, okay? When you exercise, things get stressed. Okay, so you have to consider recovery being all of the things that get stressed and come back to homeostasis, right? Yep. We talked about homeostasis quite a bit in the last couple episodes. So if you go into a gym that focuses on a holistic approach to recovery, you're talking about digestive recovery, you're talking about hormone recovery, you're talking about muscle recovery, immune system recovery, joint recovery, homeostasis, all in all, you know, there's so many spokes to that wheel, and they all felt some stress, right? So how do you recover from all of those things? Well, honestly, it goes into sleep. And sleep is the #1 rated sports performance enhancing drug that is absolutely free, that nobody takes.
Right.
And it has a lot of weight on, you know, not just sports performance, but it has weight on people, the ability to lose body fat. Right? We see that all the time.
Yeah. Someone just getting an additional hour of sleep at night, and then the results jump through the roof, you know?
Yeah. And it's funny because, you know, I have a lot of stuff written down in notes, but I don't
100 pages of notes.
I don't plan on sticking to any of it because I know we're going to have instances come up that pop in our head that we've had experiences with members or clients. And, you know, when I sit down with somebody to do nutrition counseling or nutrition coaching, they fill out an intake form, and essentially it's just, I need to know where you were, so I need to know where we're going. You know what I mean? So one of my favorite things is to determine goals by doing something called the triangle of awareness, right? So at each point of a triangle, if you were to draw a triangle, you would write down 1 point being health, 1 point being aesthetics, and 1 being performance.
Right.
Okay. And your job is to take your pencil and draw a little X somewhere in the triangle that best represents your goal, right? And so you draw an X, you know, somewhat close to the aesthetics, but somewhere close to the health, somewhere over there, because those are the really things that you're focusing on. My job is then to see that and to verify your goal by telling you what your goal is in fact not, right?
For sure.
And people hate doing that.
Yeah.
Because they're like, well, I want to look good, and I want to squat 500 pounds,
yeah,
and I want to be really healthy. And I'm like...
They put an X to the entire thing.
Yeah, so whenever we're going through the goal process, you know, as far as determining, you know, what are we working towards, you know, developing that why and all that stuff, It's funny, a lot of people tell me with their recall and their intake, and they write down the amount of sleep that they get, and they're like, I have headaches, I have energy depletion midday, I have poor recovery time from my workouts, I'm always sore, my joints hurt, but I eat really well. And when they're like, and I'm just trying to lose body fat, I said, okay, so I hear that you're trying to lose body fat, but let me tell you what your real goal is. Your real goal is trying to sleep 7 hours for the first time in 10 years. You know what I mean? And we put all of our eggs into that basket, and when it happens, they're like, holy crap, like, what is this world that I'm able to live, with so much energy and the ability to focus and all of this stuff. So,
just so many people, unfortunately, and I was guilty of this as well, we have no idea what it is like to feel healthy, And once people achieve that, they're like, man, this is amazing. And it's like, well, that's what really was intended and meant to happen. Now we just need to maintain it. Yeah,
and it's not something that, take for example, on Sunday night of this week, when this, we're a week in front of when this will be released, but on Sunday night I went to bed and I slept great, and I woke up to my alarm, got out of bed without having to hit snooze at all, came to work, and I told the 6 a.m. class, I said, you're all in trouble because I got great sleep. Yeah. You know what I mean? And then I was even telling you that yesterday. Had a great workout.
We rotate days.
It's so weird.
Seems like.
So weird. Had a great workout, felt recovered. It was good. All was good Monday. It was the best Monday I had in a while. And then last night happened. My year-old son decided that 3:30 in the morning was his wake-up call, and he was ready to go. And if you dare put him back in his bed, he was going to absolutely... Kid's got a set of lungs on him. And, of course, he wakes up my daughter at 3:45, and she thinks it's ready to go time. And, my wife's trying to manage chaos. I end up having the daughter in bed with me, and my alarm goes off at 4:15. And I'm like, well... So much for that one
Let's go.
Day. So, yeah, obviously it's not something that is 100% maintainable. I don't believe that unless you literally have no responsibilities except for to sleep. Parents especially, we have a hard time prioritizing sleep because there's just so much other things that are more important. But I'm here to tell you, and hopefully you'll be able to pick up at the end of this podcast, that sleep is literally the thing that is keeping you from dying faster.
Amen. Yeah. We say it all the time. If you want to have the fastest route to a lack of health opportunity, just go to bed whenever you want. And don't focus on sleep.
Absolutely. And you'll hear me reference a guy by the name of Dr. Matthew Walker on here quite a bit. If you guys do not know who he is I can't even think of what his actual title is, but he studies sleep. Okay, he's been on numerous podcasts. Wrote a book called Why We Sleep that I have. It's definitely a good book, and it's profound. Some of the research that is out there about how sleep and how necessary sleep is. I think one of his quotes I had written down here at the bottom of my note sheet. Here's a stark fact for you, and let's see if we can wake up some of the guys out there. Ready for this? Men who sleep less than 5 hours a night have a significantly smaller testicles than men who sleep 7 hours or more.
You don't want small balls.
That's backed by data, right? Yeah. Okay. Men who sleep 4 or 5 hours a night will have the same testosterone production as someone 10 years their senior, and similar impairments are found in reproductive health in women. So basically, if you sleep less than 7 hours a night, you are aging yourself by 10 years.
Yeah, we need to do an entire podcast just talking about testosterone and hormones. But if a guy just wants to feel, and look, to each their own, but if you want to feel like a silverback gorilla, you need to get some sleep at night. You know? And
it's and I'll cover it here in a minute, but some of these facts that he comes out with, as far as it's meant to capture your attention so that he's like, okay, now let me present the rest of this so this can make a little bit more sense to you. Okay. So let's consider, we're talking about recovery as a whole and how sleep can be the best thing for you. So during exercise, you have to understand that there are some things that happen. Okay. And some of this is dependent on the type of training that you do.
I was going to say, number one, we need to exercise to deserve recovery.
Right. This is very dependent on the exercise that you do. Okay. There is a difference between resistance training and aerobic training. Obviously, passive versus active stretching. A lot of different things like that play a part in a lot of these things that I'm going to mention. But as a whole, it's generally assumed, that during exercise you have a hormone release. Okay. And this is a good thing. This is something you want. This is your body trying to get back to homeostasis, right? Would that be a fair assumption for why hormones are secreted during exercise?
Yeah.
Okay. The top three, and you're more of a hormone person than I am, but the top three that I know of would be cortisol, testosterone, and growth hormone.
Right.
Accurate?
Yes.
Okay. So
he's on.
Good. Okay. So those things are needed to essentially get muscle production, muscle recovery, protein synthesis, all kickstarted back to where it was going. Remember, the body's always trying to get back to homeostasis, right?
Right.
If you provide a stimulus to it, it needs to get back and away from the stimulus back to homeostasis. Everything's balanced, everything's good.
For sure.
Also during exercise, we just kind of hinted on it, but like muscles experience micro tears. They break down. They need to heal. The digestive system essentially stops if it is really demanded to. Okay, and sometimes that's a good thing because your digestive system, like we talked about in the last podcast,
it a break.
It needs a break, right? Also during exercise, cellular byproduct is created. Right? So think of it as, the exhaust on your car. Okay, you burn gasoline, you have a CO2 emission. Yeah, CO2, right? Sorry, I had a brain fart there. Yeah. So you have a byproduct of the combustion of gasoline within the cylinders. Joints take increased stress during exercise. Okay. Sometimes you can have an increase in the production of synovial fluid because of it. There's a lot of different things that happen during exercise that you need to recover from. And there's a lot more than just tearing muscles, right? Same thing for, more cardiovascular health and what's happening with your cardiovascular system, you know what I mean? And how it responds to that stimulus. So all of these things that happen, let's say that all of those things represented, and I love using the bicycle spoke as an example. I referenced it in the last podcast. Let's say that all of those things refer to a spoke on the bicycle wheel. If one of them is half an inch shorter, that wheel will still turn, but it's taking increased stress around that broken spoke each and every pass, right? And eventually your body's not going to be able to compensate anymore.
Right.
And you're going to run into issues, okay? So a lot of the myriad of these issues that can come up can be things like CNS and PNS fatigue, okay? So central nervous system and peripheral nervous system fatigue. And there's a lot of information as far as kind of diving into the nervous system fatigue. I don't want to say just nervous system fatigue because that gets loosely thrown around, I think, especially when people think that lifting heavy is what does it the most, which irritates the hell out of me.
Yeah.
Anywho.
It's probably sitting in a computer.
Yeah, honestly, yeah. So it's actually, evidence is more tied towards the low intensity, longer duration workouts being the ones that increases more central nervous fatigue and stuff like that. But that's neither here nor there. But essentially, when your central nervous system starts to fatigue, your body has a hard time essentially recruiting muscles to do the active work that you need, right? So it's sending a signal to the muscles, but the muscles are not receiving the signal and understanding what to do with it, right? Does that sound about right?
Yeah.
So anyway, so like a common one that we always talk about is your grip strength.
Yes. I'm glad he brought it up.
You were just waiting on me, right?
I was letting him go with this.
So talk about it.
When an individual, like when your central
I need a drink of water.
nervous system is fatigued, one of the most clear ways a person can understand, all right, how do I know if my central nervous system has replenished, has recovered? For those of you who like to deadlift, I love to deadlift. If I go out and I grab a bar, and let's say if I kind of knew maybe 2 nights before I didn't have a great night's sleep, you start to correlate and understand. But if I go out to grab that bar and even a 45-pound bar or with a little bit of weight on it, it feels very, very heavy. I know that my brain, my body is not getting that message, that signal to the muscle to do the job that it's intended to do. My grip strength feels weak.
Yeah. And there's a lot of different mechanisms that result in that, or that create that, issue. One of them is that your body just can't, process and replenish glycogen stores like at all. Like then you're just left with no energy to do what you want to do. You know what I mean? So
Sure.
that can be one thing. Another thing that can happen if you continually are in a state of fatigue is something called Hpa Access Dysregulation.
And then you're all messed up.
Then you are all messed up. Now this is one that many people went down the adrenal fatigue path. Like that got thrown around really loosely. But when you look at it from more of a physiological aspect, it's not adrenal fatigue at all, right?
It's it's Hpa Access Dysregulation.
Yeah,
and dysfunction.
Yeah, and I know you know a lot more about that than I do.
Yeah, it's a big thing that we talk about. Like when I take on a hormone, like a hormone coaching client, that's one of the first things I educate them on. Like the body is a system of systems. So when we're considering and we're talking about sleep, if we're not allowing the adrenals to properly function because you're not getting adequate rest, and then there's a lot of other things that go into it: diet, previous trauma, potential like supplements or prescription medications that you take, stressful situations, whatever. Anyway, when the body is under that long duration stress, right, and you cause that Hpa Access dysregulation, it's going to be more difficult now to sleep because your body is sending the wrong hormonal signals at different periods throughout the day. That's why a lot of individuals, if you're listening or watching this, if you get super tired around like 2 o'clock, that's not normal.
No.
That shouldn't happen.
Right.
So anyway.
Yeah. So that would be a fun topic to just touch on for one full day, one full podcast. Because I'd let you do all the talking that time.
We'll get to that.
So we're just listing off, a myriad of issues that can happen when you can't recover.
Yeah.
Okay. And it's not that these can happen. We've seen them happen.
Definitely.
Like we see them a lot. You know what I mean? With our clients. You start to see, here's another one. You start to see clients turn more catabolic than anabolic. Now this goes particular with the way that we train. We do primarily resistance training, free weights, with some basal metabolic conditioning. I wouldn't say that it's a ton. It's very short. It's more interval based, more than likely.
We program around recovery.
We program specifically around recovery. But you see people who get after it a little too often at too high of an intensity, and they essentially turn catabolic, which means their body starts to break itself down as a means of trying to recover, right? Instead of preserving muscle mass and trying to use other areas like adipose tissue for calories to recover, right?
Yeah, I love this topic. It goes back to there's so much information on the internet, and not that any of it is wrong or bad. You just have to understand how to use it.
Yes.
So like let's use an example of, let's say you have an elite CrossFit athlete. Like they're able to kill it, they tear it up. Maybe they don't have a lot of external responsibilities. They recover really, really well, super ripped. They go to the games and like life is good, Yeah. Well, Johnny decides like, well, this is what I want to do. And he's like, I need to intermittent fast. I need to work out 3 times a day. I have a really stressful job. I have 2 kids. We just bought a house.
Right.
Like, you're not your lifestyle is just completely. It's not the same. It's not, the exercise isn't what's going to get you to where you want to be.
Yeah, and that's looking at somebody who you're trying to put yourself in a lifestyle position that your body's not prepared for yet. It's not to say that it can't be there.
Exactly.
There's a ton of things that have to be in line, and I saw that firsthand when I was running a CrossFit gym. I had very little worries in my life at that time. Until my student loan started coming around, and I realized I wasn't getting paid at all to be there. So that started to bump it up, and it wasn't long after that I went and sought out other opportunities. I have nothing bad to say about CrossFit. It gave me a lot of good experience.
No, I think for the person who can recover, and they place the
absolutely.
Emphasis on it, I think it's great.
Absolutely.
Test yourself.
Absolutely. Like you can turn yourself into one badass.
Right.
As far as a mental capacity person.
Yeah.
I don't think it's healthy for everybody.
No. I don't think what we do is healthy for everybody.
No, not at all. Not at all. Yeah, there's plenty of flaws in our methodology as well.
Yeah.
But but back to your point about that, we're talking catabolic versus anabolic. Jason Phillips was talking about in one of his lessons. He was working with a very well-known CrossFitter. I can't remember who she was off the top of my head. I know it'll pop up later.
She's probably from Iceland.
No, she wasn't from Iceland. but he worked with game athletes as they were approaching game season. He's a nutrition coach. Like that is what he does. He puts your body in an optimal position to recover.
He's a smart dude.
He puts you in a position to recover. And the first thing he told her was, I hope you're okay with me taking away your abs. He said, I'm going to put body fat on you so that way you can recover.
Yep. And
you need to be okay with that. Like, it was essentially taking you from being catabolic into more of an anabolic state. Okay, which you can assume, don't draw a real strong correlation that if you have abs, you must be catabolic. That's not what I'm saying. No. But with the type of training that they were doing, that's what needed to happen for her. So catabolic versus anabolic, we're running down a wormhole. We keep forgetting that we're talking about sleep here. And then the other thing that I had on there is the retention of body fat. If you don't recover all of these systems, why in the world would your body say, hey, we should keep this here?
Because it needs energy.
It's a preservation method.
Yeah.
Your body essentially is like, hey, there's a lot of stuff happening out here that we're not able to control, and it's weirding us out. So we're just going to hold on to this in case we ever need it.
Yeah.
And that's the same thing for like people with severe caloric restrictions.
Yeah, it's a great point, because your body is smarter than you are.
It truly is, and it frustrates me at times because trying to figure it out is hard. But it all gets tied back into how do you recover? And sleep is the number one thing about it. How can you recover via sleep? So that's where you start to look up, like, if you had to guess percentage of Americans that get less than 7 hours of sleep.
Guess?
Because go ahead and guess.
Less than 7 hours? I'm going to say over 80%.
Over 80%? Yeah. Survey says 35% get less than 7 hours. I call bullshit on that one.
Yeah.
Well, here's the deal. It's an epidemiology study. Like, here, fill out this form and tell me what you did back in 1980. Were you sleeping this much?
Right.
Yeah, of course I was. Sure. So I hate those studies anyways.
What was life like when you were 18?
Yeah, seriously. so honestly, it says 30 to 40% of Americans don't get enough sleep.
If you're 18, that's great.
Yeah, no, sure. So insert Dr. Walker and a lot of the stuff that he was talking about, and you can start to determine that sleep is the number one reason why you essentially see results.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then from there we can get into a whole lot of understanding of, okay, when I do sleep 7 hours, what actually happens? So why we are actually on the topic of recovery, we do need to draw some understanding to, I guess, I hinted at why all these things make sense and why they are helpful to know, but how can we make sense of it all? Okay, how can we put ourselves in this scenario? And I think I have on here, I wanted you to talk about a little bit, this study that we found, comparing sleep in young adults and adults, and how it affected certain hormone regulation, right? And how lack of sleep. So when you have a lack of sleep, what did this study talk about?
Yeah, the abstract, I'm going to lean here a little bit so you guys can hear me. Just straight from it. Studies in adults and children and laboratory studies in young adults indicating that sleep restriction results in metabolic and endocrine alterations, including decreased glucose tolerance, decreased insulin sensitivity, increased evening concentrations of cortisol, increased levels of ghrelin, decreased levels of leptin, and increased hunger and appetite. All right.
So
wrapping all that up,
break that down.
Right. We're going to make sense of this for the not every single person listening, but look, we have to be honest with our audience out there, and 70% of the United States are overweight, and it would be unfair for us to say that sleep is not a reason or a correlation for that. So, when the body is not able to receive rest, it doesn't heal. You don't downregulate specific hormones, especially cortisol.
What does downregulation mean?
They're not working as hard. All right. They have the ability to taper off and be at a lower level. Okay.
Right. Getting your hands into it now.
Yeah, I'm sorry. The cortisol should, I talk with my hands a lot. This is difficult for me to not be like knocking this desk over right now. Anyway, when cortisol should be down, but if it's up all night long because of the disruption throughout the course of a day because you didn't get any rest for, like, let's say the last couple weeks, now we're starting to trend towards that HPA axis dysregulation, and then we're going to start messing a lot of other things up. So like leptin and ghrelin for individuals, we haven't talked a lot about that yet. Those are hunger hormones that cues directly to the hypothalamus, like in your brain, if you are full or satiated from a meal. And if that is disrupted, well, now you no longer have that hunger cue. What are you probably going to do?
Start eating everything.
Yeah, eat a lot and more than likely overeat. You're just not satiated from food. Yeah. And the reason is people don't draw this correlation. Your body's trying to get you to like chill out. It's trying to send you away like a bear would, and to like hibernate, get fat, and to recover.
Yeah. So interesting as far as, that's an easy one. Like you're just looking at this, obviously of the 70% that are overweight, there's a correlation there that they are also probably insulin resistant. Yeah. Which is a strong correlation into type 2 diabetes, right? I guarantee you they have different kinds of decreased glucose tolerance. Like tolerances meaning like you can't physically handle sugar being in your bloodstream.
Right.
And I don't know if you know this, but all carbohydrates break down into a form of sugar. Yeah. And that gets dumped into your bloodstream.
Pixie sticks.
Yeah. So like if you can't handle those two things, you're already way behind the 8 ball. Mm-hmm. And it can be tied to sleep. Okay?
It's free.
Yeah, so
should be.
Okay, let's move on to the next one. Digestive function. I'll read this one. This is a good one. Okay. Sleep deprivation. This is another just a conclusion from a research article we found. Sleep deprivation can impact a balance which can be problematic for the health of your gut. Serotonin, an important neurotransmitter and regulator when it comes to your sleep-wake cycle, is found primarily in your gut and is also considered to be essential for how your digestive system functions, affecting your bowel movements and pain sensitivity. So, lack of sleep basically can prevent your body from getting future sleep just based on what serotonin does for the body. Mm-hmm. Like that sucks. Yes. Like you can't even accumulate a sleep debt. You can't even get tired for 3 days and be like, oh, I'm going to sleep this off. It don't work that way.
That is a myth.
It doesn't work that way. And then also your gut, which we talked about in the last podcast, is responsible for your inflammatory response. So if you have high inflammation, you have high, what's the word I'm looking for? High pain connection. Like you are definitely feeling a lot more pain than somebody with low inflammation.
Right.
Okay. I can't think of the best wording for that. That's sleep. Sleep. It's free.
That's it, folks.
It's still free. Sleep affecting your immune system. Obviously, we once again tie it all back to the gut. Studies suggest that a lack of sleep and cancer is strongly correlated because of the lack of scavenging cells in the body. Okay, you got cytokines that you need in there. The roles that cytokines play, they regulate inflammation, right?
Let's say it. While we're on the, it's the timetable that we're at.
All derived in the gut.
We'll get a look back at this. If an individual wanted to be, I would say, more resilient to any virus, not just COVID, what's something that they could do?
Sleep.
Okay.
Sleep.
It is an easy way to have your immune system function at an optimal level.
Sleep.
Yeah.
And then obviously muscle recovery. Okay, so you'll find more research articles on muscle recovery over anything else, probably tenfold. Essentially, how sleep affects your ability to recover from workouts, okay, specifically resistance training. A study in 2011 examined how sleep deprivation affected muscle gains and recovery. Study followed individuals who were on a strict sleep schedule for 72 hours. During this time, one group was allowed 5.5 hours of sleep. Mind you, that's probably more than average for most people.
Yeah, they were allowed.
Mind you, that was probably more than average, right? And another was allowed 8.5 hours per day. All individuals followed a calorie-regulated diet. What researchers discovered is that the individuals who slept only 5.5 hours had 60% less muscle mass at the end of the study, while those who slept 8.5 hours had 40% more muscle mass. Are you freaking kidding me?
Yeah.
Sleep.
3 hours.
Sleep. Oh my gosh!
It has to become a priority. An individual, it's something that they need to, like you mentioned, they need to do that chain linking, or they just have to schedule it.
Now, here's the one that'll probably raise the most eyebrows, as far as trying to lose body fat. Okay. In this study that we were talking about, or it's hard to find a study where it's like, how does this help me lose body fat? It doesn't use, they look at it from a physiological approach. Okay, how can sleep help you utilize adipose tissue or utilize free fatty acids? Like, you have to look at it kind of like that.
They want to make
right?
sense of the science.
Exactly right. The science has to speak to them. And so this study that we ended up finding was essentially talking about your body's ability to utilize adipose tissue in correlation with the amount of sleep that you get. Okay, and obviously drawing conclusions with the deprivation of sleep. So the amount of human sleep contributes to the maintenance of fat-free body mass at times of decreased energy intake. Lack of sufficient sleep may compromise the efficacy of typical dietary interventions for weight loss and related metabolic risk reduction. That basically says if you eat really well and you don't sleep, you're not losing body fat.
Right.
We just made that pretty crystal clear, right?
Yeah.
Like, I've had numerous people realize that when I sleep, I feel amazing. I'm actually able to eat more, and when I eat more, I lose weight. It's like, how does any of this work?
Yeah.
Right? And it all stemmed around the fact that you can only get 4.5 hours of sleep at night. And for some people, like, that's super hard to focus on and prioritize 4.5 hours of sleep. Don't get me wrong. I am so motivated by the people who are like, screw sleep. I can sleep when I'm dead. Like, I'm good. You know, I can get all this done and my productivity.
The Rock is one of those guys.
Dude, I'm telling you.
He's a machine.
I'm all about it.
I can't be that.
I'm all about it. But I physically, my body just does not operate the way he does. And I totally get that you can override the system by a mindset. And I'm trying to get there. Don't get me wrong.
Well, you can adapt, definitely. You know, we used to tell individuals, well, you should, rotate your days for squats. I squat 5 days a week now, and I love it. But the first month, it sucked. I was sore all the time. Anyway, there is a specific percentage of the population, and again, these are probably the individuals that handle it. It's like 1% or less. They just don't need as much sleep.
I think it was actually 10.
They recover. I'm glad he said it.
I don't know. I think, 'cause I remember Dr. Walker talking about that, but he's like, you have a room of 10 people. You think one person's going to agree to that? They're going to be like, no. 6 of the people are like, no, that's me all day, baby. You know what I mean? And he's like, no, you're liars. Like,
sure.
That's the thing. I'm always just going to err on the side that I'm 90%, and I'm not willing to risk my health to find out if I'm in the minority.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Another thing too with recovery, and this is I don't remember if you mentioned this in the book. I did it so long ago, or read it so long ago. When I have a poor night's rest, it's not the next day that I'm affected. It's 2 days.
Right. So
like, I slept terrible last night. My workout was great today. My workout will be awful tomorrow. And like, I just understand that.
Good thing I have a rest day Thursday. The way that mine's shaking out, so that's all right. So anyway, we're bringing a lot to light to what sleep does for you, and obviously it has tremendous benefits. It recommends that you get 7 to 9 hours. If it wasn't the most important thing that the body needed, like as far as how the body evolves, it's the biggest screw up in the evolution process. Like, that's a quote from Dr. Walker as well. Like, think of, not to try to get down an evolution rabbit hole or anything, but like, think of an animal. What are their primary instincts? It needs to sleep, it needs to eat, it needs to reproduce. Like, that's essentially it. Yeah. So if it's not doing one of those two things while awake, it's literally leaving itself vulnerable to predation because its eyes are closed and it's, you know what I mean? So like, if it wasn't that vitally important, like, evolution really screwed up. You know what I mean? So like, obviously we can draw some ties here. It is incredibly needed. It's not, you can't even use the word beneficial. It's needed.
Well, just go as many days as you can without rest and see what happens.
Don't do that.
I mean, if people really want to, understand, be their own guinea pig, you can't function.
Sure.
Your body has
so
to heal.
here's an interesting point though you bring up, because like, we do the same thing with calories, right? We get in the idea that, I'm going to be on this restrictive calorie diet. I'm going to be eating less than I burn. I'm going to lose weight. Okay. You're eating 500 calories and you've been the same weight for 3 months. You're telling me that you don't burn more than 500 calories a day?
Yeah.
Like, that's highly, highly unlikely.
Right.
Your organs, your system probably burns at least 1,000, more than likely. So tell me why you're not losing weight. Okay, it's a principle of becoming metabolically adapted to a specific amount. Okay, your body, I believe, I don't have any literature to prove this, but I believe you can be essentially adapted to a certain amount of sleep as well. But that doesn't mean it's healthy.
Yeah.
That means that your body has negotiated essentially to the bare minimum that it can, quote unquote, function.
Yeah.
I guess function is probably not even the right word because you're probably dysfunctional in many areas, but at least you're functioning as a human in society.
Right.
Right? So, because it's funny because whenever you get a person to sleep, quote unquote, 7-8 hours for the first time in a while, what usually happens? Just think about it for a second. Anybody listening out there in podcast land, when you got a full 7-8 hours of sleep and you fell asleep, you didn't wake up, you dreamt, you had a dream, and you woke up to your alarm. When you woke up for that first time, what did you experience? Most people are like, I'm still tired. I'm like, holy crap, dude. You were deep into that REM sleep where you were really rejuvenating. Your cells were starting to heal. Your body was going through all of its processes in a much, passive flow, so to speak. Mm-hmm. And your body was like, that was good, and I was relaxed. And then cortisol shot up like, hey, get up. I don't know what's going on, you know what I mean? So it's one of those things that until you do it and you allot for it for a while, your body will essentially have to adapt to the amount of sleep you're going to give it. Because, that's kind of how my wife was coming out of, it's the first time that we get our kids to sleep all night, right? She's so used to getting up at 3 a.m, 2 a.m, or multiple times with the kids.
Yeah.
And the first time they sleep all night, she gets up and she goes, I'm exhausted.
Yeah,
and I was like,
you kind of freak out.
You finally got there.
Yeah.
And your body was in that good, rejuvenating sleep that you need. Mm-hmm. But honestly, it was such a foreign thing that your body probably feels really sluggish, and it's going to take a minute for you to adapt to it.
Yeah.
You got any personal experience with that one?
Look, I've been trying to do the sleep thing for a long time now because, for many, I haven't told my, personal story with the hormone thing, and I'm not going to get into all that right now, but I've been down the path where my body was in a very bad way due to stress and honestly, probably a little bit of a lack of recovery and sleep. So once I was able to start establishing that rest routine again, put back on some weight, started getting stronger again. I mean, it's amazing what the body is capable of again when it's healthy.
Oh, for sure. So now the follow-up question, okay? Because honestly, we've covered the two major areas that if somebody came to me and says, you have 90 days to make me lose weight, body fat, whatever, this is where I'm starting. I'm starting with your digestive system, like we talked about in the last podcast. And we're talking about sleep.
Yeah.
We haven't even got into exercise yet.
Yeah.
At all.
I remember when I was at Ball State, we did a study, and I think it was 12 weeks long. But we had two specific groups. One group, we completely controlled their food, and they didn't exercise whatsoever. They might have a little bit on their own. And then the other group, we completely controlled their training, but they could just do whatever the heck that they wanted. Which group do you think saw results?
Mm-hmm. Probably the one with controlled food.
Yeah, the group that didn't exercise. We believe in exercise. We run a fitness facility.
Yes.
But if we don't teach you all of the other things, the exercise is the easy part.
Yeah, for sure.
If we can help you connect the dots everywhere else, you're going to be much more successful, not only here, but once you're outside of here as well.
Yeah. So that, we're talking about digestion. If I have 90 days with this mythical client, 90 days to lose body fat. We're talking digestion. We're talking sleep. Those are the first two things. And when we get into the exercise podcast, don't get me wrong, I'm going to be happy as a lark because I'm giddy about that stuff.
Yeah, that's easy to talk about.
But these two things are the things that are proven to work.
Definitely. Yeah.
You can get on whatever exercise program you want. You can do fill in the blank. I don't need to go down the list. Mm-hmm. It does not matter until you take into account these couple things, the digestion and the sleep.
I love the look that we get from our clients and our members when they come to us, and for some of these individuals, it might have been someone that I was working to prior to Reclaim, so they might have been with us 8, 9, 10 years by now, and they're like, when I finally started to do this thing, you did know what you were talking about, and I started seeing results, and then they look at me, they're like, you're not shocked? And I'm like, no. I knew that it works. You have to trust in the process, and you have to take some action and do it.
It's hard to give up that trust. We get it. So the follow-up question is always going to be, okay, so I sleep like crap, James. What the hell can I do? How can I work towards this? I've got a couple things down, but I'm curious about what you do as far as how you navigate clients to this, because I still pull a lot of my information from Dr. Walker because I've troubleshooted it, troubleshot it, whatever. It works. It works. Yeah. And it works well. Yeah. The dude's a blanking genius.
He is the expert, so we'll definitely hear what he has to say. I think I love coaching just anyone in a one-on-one setting, whether nutrition, hormone, whatever, because like we all have to understand there's that opportunity for grace and understanding. This is going to take a little bit of time, and you're going to mess it up. Yeah. And if you don't have someone that can speak that into you, or you struggle with that truth, like you're not going to correct this in 2 days. Probably not. So you need to know that like up front, so you're able to develop that plan and consistency like we talked about, and then just continue to actively pursue it. And the thing that I challenge my hormone clients to, once you're able to start working and achieving better rest, you need to make sure you're journaling and keeping record of things so you can correlate those wins or successes or whatever with the sleep, not the supplement or the exercise program or the bonus you got at work or whatever, seriously. But also creating some habits and rituals, which I'm sure that's a lot more of what you'll talk about.
Yeah. So I even remember when I first came to Reclaim, as far as, we used to sit members down and do lectures once a week. And one of the first lectures I remember
good old days.
Yeah, I remember one of the first lectures I remember hearing you say, this is before I was an employee, and you were talking about, more circadian rhythm stuff. Like I know circadian rhythm. I went to school. I was learned. But essentially going to bed when the sun goes down and getting up when the sun goes up or comes up, it does wonders for your body as far as regulation. Yeah. Right? You're not trying to fight homeostasis. Yeah. Your body's still trying to work at ease. Okay. When the sun goes down, darken the house. Get all your lights off. You can be candlelit. That's fine.
The big lights overhead, especially.
Get them off.
Turn those bad boys off.
Yeah. Okay. I'm not too proud to admit that I wear a sleep mask when I go to bed.
Attaboy.
I'm telling you right now, it works.
Yeah.
I had to find one that was more concave so I didn't, rub my camel-size eyelashes on it when I was blinking. But I did find one, and I'm telling you right now, that stuff works. Yeah. Okay. Your body wants to be in a dark place. Okay. Wake up and go to bed at the same time. So obviously that coincides a little bit with circadian rhythm.
Weekends.
Yes, absolutely. I find it impossible to sleep in on the weekends. Yeah. 5:30, I'm screwed. I'm up. Like, that's it. Can't do it. My bladder says the same thing too. Like, he's like, no, we're getting up today, so you might as well just go ahead and stop trying to keep rolling over.
Sure.
Alcohol. Stop drinking alcohol. Yeah. Look, I get it. I enjoy my bourbon from time to time.
There's a time to celebrate. There's Absolutely. A time to enjoy. But especially if you're an individual who self-medicates with alcohol to go to sleep, it's not a matter of if. You have HPA Access Dysregulation.
Right. And so Dr. Walker talks about that a lot. Okay, and he said the thing about alcohol is it's a sedation. Sedation does not equal sleep. No. It essentially knocks out your cortex, and essentially what happens is your body has multiple wake-ups in the middle of the night, but you don't remember it because you're essentially sedated, quote unquote. Right. So you don't get restful sleep. Yeah. In which case, it leads right into what you just said. Like, you are bound to have that happen eventually in some degree. Yeah. Like, we see it a lot.
If you think about when you consume too much alcohol, you pass out, you wake up the next morning, you don't feel amazing. No. At least I don't think so, because your rest was terrible and your body is full of toxins and inflammation.
Yeah, for sure. Moving on. Eliminate electronics at night. Yeah. Visual stimulation. What light is it? The blue light? Is that what it is?
Blue. Yeah. Yeah. If you're looking at a phone or an iPad before you go to sleep, like, the easiest thing to do, like what we coach on all the time, get a book. Like, read a book.
I hate
Turn
reading.
Some pages and read a book.
Books. I'd rather everything be audio. Is there any science?
I buy books.
Is there anything that's audio that prevents sleep?
I don't know. They'll
Not that I
probably do
listen.
some studies on it. I'm
Not
sure.
that I listen to things before I go to bed, but like, ugh, it hurts my eyes. I'm sure I have some kind of dysregulation somewhere with that. Don't associate your bedroom with wakefulness. This is a quote from Dr. Walker, and this is the one that I have trouble shot.
Yeah.
And it works. Okay. Here's where a lot of people, I think, screwed up during the COVID times. They turned their bedroom into an office, and therefore their body associated that this place, because your brain loves to associate. This is going back to the very first podcast we did?
Yeah.
Like, your brain loves to associate. It will associate this place with being awake. The last thing you want to do if you're somebody who has trouble falling asleep is stay in bed when you're not tired. Okay, you don't go to the dinner table to sit down at the table when you're not hungry. Why would you go to bed if you're not tired, right?
My kids do.
So
Mom.
Right. So essentially, if you wake up in the middle of the night and you're tossing and turning, get out of bed. Go downstairs, keep the lights down, read a book, meditate, prayer, whatever you want to do until you're sleepy, but don't go to bed until you are sleepy. Your body will associate that room, that area, that space with sleep.
Yeah, that's a great point. I love when we talk to clients, you don't go to bed and then try to become tired.
No, yeah, horrible. Okay, your body needs a cool room. Okay, not too hot. I think somebody quoted that you need like a 2 or 3 degree thermal drop in temperature for your body to really kickstart sleep. Is that something like that?
I just love this point because I know everyone is not able to do this. We keep our house, like when we go to bed at night, between 63 and 65.
Yeah.
Most people are like, oh, dude, it's way too cold in there. I'm like, look, that's just, we all sleep great. And
bears. We're a bunch of bears. So another one that has been troubleshot at our house, a hot bath before you go to bed.
Yeah.
And here's why. Most people think, oh, your hot bath is going to make you all warm and cozy and whatnot. No, it's the exact opposite. Like, all of the blood rushes to the surface of your body, and as soon as you step out, what happens? All of a sudden, it goes right back inward.
Yep.
Now you're freezing, and it gives your body that false sense of, hey, we need to get secure under heat, okay, to raise our thermo temperature back up, but you just dumped your thermo temperature by 2 or 3 degrees. So guess what? Kickstart your sleep.
Yeah.
Go get in bed, right? As an easy hack. What else? I think that was the only other one that I've essentially tried. Because I've definitely done the association one. Definitely done that one. And then, obviously, we'd be in trouble if we didn't mention, quit drinking caffeine.
Oh, yeah.
In the evenings.
Kill Cliff right now.
Oh, my gosh, man. It's we have a hard time understanding why caffeine really has that much of a play on our sleep. But the fact of the matter is that caffeine competes with adenosine for receptor sites in the brain.
Yep.
And that is essentially what kickstarts your sleep cycle. And when you have those receptor sites blocked, you can have all the adenosine you want, but that's why you essentially end up having a crash, right? The caffeine works for a while, and then all of a sudden they come off of those receptors, and the adenosine just goes, give it to me, and they're all connected, and then it's like your body's like, dump.
Right. We have to mention, decaffeinated coffee still contains caffeine.
Yes, it does.
We can do
30%?
a whole podcast on that.
I don't want to.
Yeah, maybe not. We'll call Black Rifle. They can help.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. Let's get a hold of those boys.
Yeah, like I've even experimented with this because I like to understand. I didn't experiment with decaf coffee. I had a conference call a few weeks ago, and it was late in the evening, like 7:00, and by 7:00 I've already had dinner and I'm starting to wind down, so I needed to stay up. So I had a little bit of caffeine, not a lot, at probably like 3 or 4. I could not go to bed that night.
Nope. Don't drink pre-workout in the evenings. I don't care if you work out in the evenings.
Yeah.
Your sleep screwed up. I guarantee it.
Yeah, we got a little bit of flack for this, but Colton's like, I don't know, where's he going right now? We used to have a class at 6 p.m. Mm-hmm. And the more that we talked as a staff, and the more that we wrestled with this idea, our mission is there we go with the hands. Our mission is health. That's what we're after.
Right.
And it's not that individuals can't work out late, but for so many of our members and the problems that they had, it's that they needed to prioritize their training at a different time, because when they get home and all of the other things that they have to do, they can't sleep. They weren't seeing results.
That's us prioritizing.
We weren't leading them to health. And it's not that working out late is wrong or bad, but you're going to be much better off if you can get it done probably before 6 or 7 p.m.
Yep, agreed. Cool. I like that one. We're enjoying these, guys. I've been getting a bunch of emails from people trying to identify or ask questions. By all means, continue to send them to us. Use any of our contact info on our social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. We're going to have a Q&A essential hour one day.
Yeah.
Like, it'll be kind of fun to diagnose kind of how we would go about clinically, I get in trouble with that, how we would go about working through problems with our members. Say
sure.
you are our member, okay?
Yeah.
So until then, appreciate you guys hopping on and listening to us ramble back and forth.
Get some sleep tonight.
And get some daggum sleep tonight. All right, guys. Thanks again. This is the Silver Bullet Podcast.